CNN claims to be the most trusted name in news, but here are 13 things CNN has said that make us question its claim. Hurricane Ian was a large and destructive Category 4 Atlantic hurricane that was the deadliest hurricane to strike the state of Florida since the 1935 Labor Day hurricane. Watch Don Lemon focus on his political agenda rather than talk about the actual news about the hurricane.
Can you tell us what this is and what effect climate change has on this phenomenon? Listen, I'm just trying to get that. You said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question.
Now watch Don Lemon's attempt to politicize Hurricane Ian get exposed.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event. Okay. On the whole, on the cumulative, climate change may be making storms worse, but to link it to any one event, I would caution against that.
But Lemon doubles down, using an anecdote from his childhood to justify his claims.
Listen, I grew up there, and these storms are intensifying. Something is causing them to intensify.
Why is Don Lemon focusing on climate change theories rather than on helping people by actually reporting the news about Hurricane Ian? In 2016, 6 police officers were shot in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. After their shooting, Don Lemon had a discussion with Sheriff David Clark. Here's Lemon setting some guidelines for Sheriff Clark.
All I want to do is have a conversation. I can't have a conversation with you if we're both talking at the same time. What it sounds like to me is that you're accusing me of violence and supporting something, a narrative that I'm not necessarily in support of. And if that's what you're accusing me of violence, then you can leave. That's not true. I don't support violence of any type against police officers, against anyone. So if you're accusing me of that, then you're welcome to leave.
Now watch Sheriff Clark challenge Lemon concerning the narrative that there is systemic racism within the police in America.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Do we know that generally the American law enforcement officers are racist? Do we know this?
Go on.
I asked a question.
Do I know American general law enforcement are racist?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is accusing. If you're insinuating that people are accusing or saying that law enforcement across this country as a whole are racist, then your assumption is wrong.
First of all, this whole anti-police rhetoric is based on a lie. There is no data, and you know this. There is no data, there is no research that proves any of that nonsense. None.
You'd have to be more specific about what data and what nonsense you're talking about.
That law enforcement officers treat black males different than white males in policing in these urban centers.
There is data.
Now watch Lemon respond to Sheriff Clark, an attempt to support his narrative concerning the police, and Sheriff Clark answers Lemon's arguments.
There is data that supports.
There is not data.
No. The president spoke about it. Cedric Alexander, who is a law enforcement officer.
The president has been lying about it. He said it again the other day when he said black males are 2 times more likely to be shot by a law enforcement officer than white males. Don, that is a lie.
That is not a lie.
It is a lie.
Yeah,
show me.
The research.
Show me.
The research
show
that
it to me
that we have from the Washington Post. That
the Washington Post debunked that nonsense.
Finally, Sheriff Clark asked a simple question to Don Lemon, and then listened to Lemon's answer.
Do you condemn the anti-police rhetoric coming from this hateful ideology?
As a journalist sitting here on television, I don't have to condemn anyone, anything. That is something that you should ask.
Lemon claims that he's not for or against the hatred against police, yet he continues to perpetuate a false narrative about systemic racism within the police, which fuels these kinds of violent attacks on police officers. Watch CNN's Christian Amanpour attempt to corner Kenya President Uhuru Kenyatta concerning LGBTQ rights in Africa.
One of the major issues, and it's a holdover from sort of colonial Victorian, is the issue of sexual preference in many African countries. In Kenya, to be gay, the LGBT community, is illegal. They just want to have equal rights, the same privacy and equality as all other Kenyans do. Is that something that you aspire to for your country?
Surprisingly, most of the commenters on the CNN YouTube video were extremely supportive of President Kenyatta's honesty in his response.
I want to be very clear, Christiana. I will not engage in a subject that is of it is not of any major importance to the people and the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue, as you would want to put it, of human rights or this. This is an issue of society, of our own base as a culture, as a people, regardless of which community you come from.
Now watch Amanpour say something pretty incredible to this world leader.
You're going to get yourself into trouble. Because what you've categorically just stated is that this is not an issue for us, for the Kenyan people, yes. And you don't think that the idea of their privacy, their equality, their rights is important. But it's a global issue right now.
Again, we see CNN attempting to tell people, including presidents of other countries, what they should believe and how they should behave. Watch Don Lemon try to convince Hillary Fordwich that the British royal family should pay reparations.
And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Now watch Fordwich expose Lemon's narrative and agenda.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery? First nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people. They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages. Absolutely, that's where they should start. And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It seems that Lemon was left speechless by Fordwich's answer and simply ended the discussion in defeat. Watch CNN's Kyra Phillips try to teach Vodi Bakum about the Bible.
I mean, do you think that women in evangelical circles where women are not allowed to preach, let's say Palin and McCain do win, and here you have this woman that could possibly be leading the free world, and yet there's evangelicals voting for her that don't even believe that a woman should preach at the pulpit. Could this change the face of how evangelicals believe in the woman's role?
Now watch Vodi refuse to compromise concerning the Bible's clear teachings.
And quite frankly, feminism has gained a foothold in many evangelical churches.
Do you think that's a good thing?
No, I don't. Not at all.
Why not?
Well, because we're about the gospel. The culture doesn't dictate truth. The gospel dictates truth. My job is not to be a political pundit or political activist. My job is to be a pastor and proclaim the truth of the gospel as clearly as I possibly can.
Now watch Phillips accuse Vodi of sexism.
Margaret, is the Reverend sounding a little sexist, or is it just me?
I would have to say the Reverend is sounding a little questionable there.
Finally, here's Vodi commenting on his appearance on CNN.
And so, I ended up, some of you may have seen an interview that I did on CNN before the election, talking about, some of these issues. I only got to do that one time. Yeah, that was pretty much it. The lady said after the interview was over, that, we'll have to have you back. And I knew at that moment that I would never be back on that person's show again.
This is what happens to Christians who refuse to compromise on anything the Bible clearly teaches. Watch CNN say some unbelievable things about the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370.
What if it was hijacking or terrorism or mechanical failure or pilot error? But what if it was something fully that we don't really understand? A lot of people have been asking about that, about black holes and on and on and on and all of these conspiracy theories. That's what people are saying. I know it's preposterous, but is it preposterous, you think, Mary?
Well, it is. A black hole is about, a small black hole would suck in our entire universe, so we know it's not that. Bermuda Triangle is often weather, and Lost is a TV show. So
Right.
I think I always like things for which there's data, history, crunch the numbers. So for me, those aren't there.
Lemon says, I know preposterous, but is it preposterous? And of course, a small black hole would not suck in our entire universe. But the point was that a black hole would have caused far more of a disturbance than just sucking in one airplane. Watch Don Lemon criticize Terry Crews for a tweet that is obviously true.
All right, everybody, please listen to this segment because actor and activist Terry Crews facing backlash for tweeting, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better." Here's how he explained it. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Terry Crews joins me now. Terry? Man, you stepped in it. You say that you're willing you say you're willing to die on this hill. You've taken a lot of heat for this. Explain what you were thinking and why it's so important that you die on this hill.
Now watch Terry Crews state the obvious.
And when you have the leaders of the Black Lives Movement who are now talking about, if we don't get our demands, we're going to burn it down. Other black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races, they're being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Toms. You start to understand that you are now, being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative. And I viewed it as a very, very dangerous self-righteousness that was developing that really viewed themselves as better. It was almost a supremacist move.
There's a lot more to this conversation between Lemon and Crews, but for now, here's Lemon arguing that the BLM organization is not extreme, even though they facilitated rioting and destruction all over the country.
So Terry, you realize that even during the civil rights movement that Dr. King was seen as extreme. That movement was seen as extreme. To people who don't want to make change, movements are seen as extreme. You can paint them easily as an extreme when they are not.
Watch CNN attempt to pressure Uganda President Yoweri Museveni concerning LGBTQ rights.
What is your message to Western human rights groups, to President Obama,
respect,
to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people?
And again, like with what we saw earlier from Kenya President Uhuru Kenyatta, commenters on this video were very supportive of Museveni's direct honesty.
Respect African societies and their values. If you don't agree, you just keep quiet. Let's manage our society the way we see. If we are wrong, we shall find out by ourselves. Just the way we don't interfere with yours.
Do you personally dislike homosexuals?
Of course, they are disgusting. What sort of people are they? How can you go? I never knew what they were doing. That's how I've been told recently that what they do is terrible, disgusting. But I was ready to ignore that if there was proof that that's how he's born, abnormal. But now the proof is not there.
But will CNN respect the laws and morals of these African countries? Of course not. Former DNC Chair Donna Brazile leaked CNN's town hall questions to Hillary Clinton ahead of her debate with Donald Trump.
Well, we begin with some breaking news, a stunning confession from former DNC Chair Donna Brazile. Donna is finally admitting to what we all knew all along, that she leaked CNN town hall questions to Hillary Clinton during the campaign while she, Donna Brazile, was a contributor to the network.
Can we really trust CNN when it is obviously completely biased in one direction? Watch CNN challenge John MacArthur concerning the issue of gay marriage.
John MacArthur, what is the irreparable harm of gays being married?
Now watch MacArthur refuse to compromise concerning what the Bible clearly teaches.
Well, I think there are a number of things that we need to talk about. One is it would destroy the family. I mean, obviously, God designed the family to be a man and a woman to produce a child. It is the DNA, it's the genetic structure of civilization. If you don't have that, you don't have civilization, so you're striking it at the very core of its existence.
But what does the state have to do with that? God can do it, and as a religious person, you can practice it, but why should the state be involved in a marriage?
Well, typically the state has always been involved in a marriage, and I think that because the state's responsibility is to uphold what is right, to uphold righteousness. I mean, it's in the fabric of human thinking to understand a man and a woman make a marriage and a family. God has put that in the very thinking of people. It's in the heart.
Watch Don Lemon teach Christians about God.
Listen, I respect people's right to believe in whatever they want to believe in their God. But if you believe in something that hurts another person, that does not give someone the same rights or freedoms, not necessarily under the Constitution, because this is under God, I think that that's wrong. And I think that the Catholic Church and many other churches really need to re-examine themselves and their teachings, because that is not what God is about. God is not about hindering people or even judging people.
Well, Don, if you care to actually read and understand the Bible, you would know what God says about sin and homosexuality. We've seen Don Lemon repeatedly talk down to his guests and act like the smartest and most morally superior person in the conversation. Now, let's just watch the following clip.
What were the animal shapes?
Well, it's a lion, a hippo, and a camel.
Isn't that a rhino in the middle?
A rhino.
You don't even know a hippo from a rhino. You got no acuity, son. You got no acuity.
I'm looking at it backwards. I'm looking at it backwards.
What does it mean if you don't know an elephant from a rhino?
An elephant.
Of course, this clip is mainly just a humorous one. Finally, let's watch Don Lemon claim that CNN isn't liberal.
The word on the street is that you guys aren't allowed to be liberal anymore. Is that the case?
I don't think we ever were liberal. We have to hold people to account. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going liberal or conservative or whatever. It just means that we are doing what we do, and that's good journalism.
What do you think? Is CNN just good journalism?
Thank you so much for watching into the end. If you'd like this video, hitting the subscribe button helps this channel reach more people with the truth. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement.